Public schools are said to be a safe place for students of all backgrounds, regardless of their personal differences. The sad truth, however, is that for some students, they still feel insecure about being able to be themselves in what is called a safe space for their learning. In this presentation, Brock and I are going to investigate the laws regarding protection against discrimination by sexual orientation, view how this information is relevant to both students and teachers, and where we can potentially move forward from here. As of now, there are laws that are there to protect all students from discrimination and bullying, which includes students who identify as LGBT+. These state and local laws are especially useful in protecting students from being harassed for their gender identity or sexual orientation. One problem with these laws being created by state and local legislature is that there is a lot of variation between states to how important protecting students from discrimination by sexual orientation, as one state may have very different laws from another, causing geographical issues. This shows when we see that about 41% of students who are LGBT+ have no laws protecting them from being discriminated by their teachers or peers. Currently, there are laws that state that students should be able to identify as they choose. The First Amendment gives students freedom of expression, meaning they are able to voice their opinions on LGBT+ issues, have same-sex dates, and express their gender identity as they choose. Additionally, the 14th Amendment states that all citizens, including students, must have equal protection in public schools. This implies that students should not be discriminated against for their differences and should be equal to all other students. This also means that schools have the duty to protect students from sexual orientation discrimination on an equal basis to all other students who may be harassed. Additionally, there is Education Amendment Title IX, stating that there is no discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. This includes students who don't fit the gender binary and may deviate from society's norm of male and female. Finally, the Equal Access Act forces schools to allow the formation of gay-straight alliances, or GSAs. All GSAs are given the right to have the same restrictions, and no more, as other clubs in the school. This means that schools cannot discriminate against certain clubs. Looking at the current laws in place, these sound very helpful to students who may have a minoritized sexual orientation. The issue is these laws can be in place and be practiced very poorly by the schools and by the students. This leads to issues, hence why this information is relevant to both the students and the teachers.
Student relevance. Students have a right to feel safe and supported in their learning environment. School is where they spend most of their time while learning and growing. They shouldn't feel ashamed or scared of who they are in a place that is supposed to support them. Students are affected by the environment around them, and their safety can be threatened in an unsupporting learning environment. Some statistics that represent these students are as follows. 8% of high school students identify as being lesbian, gay, or bisexual. 18% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual students have reported being raped, 3 times more likely than their straight peers. They are twice as likely to be bullied. 30% have attempted suicide, 4 times the rate of their straight peers, and 60% feel sad and hopeless. Bullying in schools. Students are bullied for a variety of reasons, such as their appearance, race, economic status, and sexual orientation. This is something educators should be aware of in their school. This graph shows the prevalence of students being bullied, broken down by reason. Student perspectives. Language has a large impact on students. 74% say they've been verbally harassed. It doesn't just stop at words either, with students reporting it frequently escalates to violence. 57% of those who experience violence don't report it to school staff because they doubt anything will be done about it. 62% of those who did said that the school staff did nothing in response. What's working for students? Gay-straight alliances give students a connection to their school community and a place to feel safe among peers. LGBT inclusive curriculum. Students not only experience lower rates of harassment when these topics are talked about, but they were much more engaged in the curriculum as well. Supportive teachers. Students who gain support from their teachers and identify with them had a higher GPA and were more likely to attend college. Comprehensive anti-bullying policies. Students at schools with comprehensive policies were less likely to experience harassment than students at schools where they weren't clearly stated. Staff intervention is also increased when policies are clearly defined.
The teachers provide a crucial role to the child's development and learning, but also in providing an optimal environment where the child feels secure. This environment is there to help all students with their learning, regardless of any differences the students may have. Almost all teachers care about the general well-being of their students. With this care, and their knowledge that students who are diverse have more struggles in life, teachers will generally want to help those students as much as possible. The issue with educators is even though many of them are able to voice their concerns with LGBT+ issues in the classroom, many stay silent, and few are willing to voice their opinion. This map shows that even though we've made progress in how open we are as a nation, there are still many states that restrict their staff and teachers from talking about LGBT+ issues in schools. In the states that are red, which are all towards the southern side of America, teachers who voice their opinions could risk losing their job. This is a problem in the classroom, as if the issues aren't able to be talked about, it makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to protect students from being discriminated based on their sexual orientation. The main issue with most educators is even the teachers who are supportive with the LGBT+ community don't speak out about these issues with their students. Some teachers feel that they are unable to talk about these issues or be an advocate in gay-straight alliances because of their heterosexuality. The problem here is without voices, there is no hope for change in public schooling. There is also variability by schools as to how much they let their teachers talk about these issues, as some teachers fear that the school may take their job away from backlash of parents or students. There is also fear on losing out on promotions because of their own sexual identity or their stance on LGBT+ issues in public schools. There are, however, teachers that are able to speak out and not have to worry about backlash or losing their jobs. The best thing these teachers can do is actively advocate for their students, to show their support for students with minoritized sexual orientations, and to actively create a secure environment that promotes inclusivity of all differences. Having this knowledge as to how this information is relevant to students and teachers, we want to be able to move forward in a direction that promotes classroom inclusivity and where sexual orientation is not discriminated.
Potential changes. Although they may not always be obvious, we as future educators can be sure that we are teaching LGBT students within our class. There has been a large push towards the rights of the LGBT community. Changing U.S. laws. To bring about change, we must encourage national, state, and local laws to put a higher importance on inclusivity. Currently, there are 31 states that don't have bullying and discriminational protection for both sexual orientation and gender identity. Talk to representatives in your area and start communication on this issue. Laws should reflect the American ideal of equality and treatment in our country that we strive for. Supporting students. Here are a few tips for creating a classroom that supports the needs of students. Putting a safe zone sign in the classroom. Openly confront intolerance, setting a good example for other students. Seek opportunities to include members of the LGBT community in the curriculum. Don't make assumptions about the sexual orientation of students. Support students from an administrative level. Volunteer in clubs or gay-straight alliances.
Overall, we recognize that it may be difficult to speak out about these issues, but we want you to recognize that the only way to create change is to talk about the problems we are experiencing. We encourage you to not only be inclusive of other sexual orientations in your classrooms, but other differences as well, as this will create an optimal learning environment for all students if done correctly.